Hello and good morning. I am Ying from SG Tech. Welcome to our Go Global webinar series covering ASEAN. So today's topic will be on tech opportunities in Vietnam, organized by SG Tech in partnership with our partner Orisa International and supported by our payment solutions partner, Western Union Business Solution. Vietnam's development over the past 30 years has been remarkable. Economic and political reforms that started since 1986 have spurred rapid economic growth, transforming the country into a lower middle income economy. So given its deep integration with the global economy, the Vietnamese economy has been hit by the ongoing COVID situation as well, but it has shown remarkable resilience. So the economy is set to grow 6.6% in 2021, on the backdrop of this successful control of the COVID-19 situation in the country itself, as well as the strong performance by export-oriented manufacturing and also a robust recovery domestic demand. So in fact, both Vietnam and Indonesia economies have been registering double-digit growths over the past year, despite COVID. So today we are very happy to find out more about Vietnam market through the panel of speakers that we have today. But before we begin, let me just go through some simple house rules. So firstly, a gentle reminder that this webinar will be recorded and uploaded onto SG Tech's website and YouTube channel for marketing and archival purposes. You can also type your questions in the Zoom Q&A box throughout the session, and selected questions will be answered. Please note that the Q&A session will be conducted at the end after all the presentations. This is our agenda for today. So we'll be covering the economic overview of Vietnam, the ICT landscape in Vietnam, as well as the development of fintech in Vietnam. So without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Mr. Terence, to give his presentation. So Terence has more than 20 years of experience in the financial sector and held a variety of senior roles, including a stint in New York as the global head of FX prime brokerage and clearing for UBS Investment Bank. His role at Western Union Business Solutions is focused on setting and executing the go-to-market strategy with core customers by creating a richer value proposition in order to support their international business growth and aspirations. So Terence leads regional CRM, key account, and digital RM teams, which serve customers wishing to execute trades and make payments, and which strive to establish commercial long-term relationships with customers. So let's welcome Terence, please.
Hi, thank you very much. Ying, could you unshare your screen, please? Thank you very much for taking the time. I trust you will find this useful. My name is Terence Oh, and as Ying has said, I am the Dealing Director for Asia for Western Union Business Solutions. So you all will probably be familiar with Western Union and its very popular yellow and black offices throughout the world where consumer funds are moved on behalf of customers everywhere. So what is Western Union Business Solutions? So are you all seeing my screen yet? Okay.
Yeah.
Western Union Business Solutions, or WAPS for short, equips you with the solutions you need to send, receive, manage international payments on a cross-border basis, on a business-to-business basis. So that's our differential from the consumer side of the business. We are here for businesses. We specialize in one thing and one thing only, which is the movement of cross-border cash on a B2B basis. Today, we're here to talk about Vietnam, one of the most robust economies in ASEAN, as Ying has mentioned. You know, even managing to register positive GDP growth in 2020, despite the circumstances, and certainly we're looking for a strong outcome in 2021. A couple of quick facts about Vietnam. There's a population of 97.58 million people over 63 provinces and neighbored by China, Laos, and Cambodia. So why Vietnam? I think we need to look at both the upsides of the story, as well as what has changed since all the positive outlook in the beginning of the year. And certainly, while Vietnam continues to register strong possible growth, the outbreak that has worsened in April of this year has caused implementation of social distancing and certainly some limitations on mobility of the population. And these have actually accelerated other trends to do with digitalization of the economy, and which is why most of the following speakers will be talking about ICT and fintech after all. But just quick facts here, up to 60% of local businesses in Vietnam have established or increased their online presence in recent times, and the government has digitized more than 2,000 public services and procedures. So there certainly is a trend to move everything online and on a digital basis. While Ying Ying has mentioned pretty bright GDP forecasts, the events of the pandemic hasn't eased regionally and domestically as quickly as we all hope. So retail sales, for example, has fallen on last look about 19.8% year on year compared even to 2020. And the growth of industrial production certainly has slowed about from 4.9% in June to 2.2% in July. So while we see expansion of GDP by 5.6% in the first semester of 2021, we are now projecting GDP growth to be around 4.8% by the end of 2021. And these are numbers supported and recently updated by the World Bank. Another consequence is, of course, from a macroeconomic perspective, current account surpluses have declined from about 4.6% to 0.5% of GDP. And fiscal deficit has increased from 4.9% to 6% of GDP. Now, this is not doom and gloom. This is an inevitable consequence of adjustments to the current and very real scenario. The progressively restrictive measures have actually affected the economy. But despite the slight downward adjustments, growth forecasts for Vietnam continue to be very positive. Now, Vietnam obviously maintains a positive external position despite the decrease in merchandise trade and current account balances. The State Bank of Vietnam continues to maintain a very accommodative monetary policy, expanding credit by 15% in recent months. So this policy, while positive for businesses and helps to keep the lubricants in the economy, does introduce a small amount of systemic risk, which we all keep an eye on. These measures do have a positive effect. So looking ahead, we expect the Vietnamese economy to converge towards the pre-pandemic growth rate of 6.5 to 7.5, starting from 2022 onwards. So, the hit or the slight downward adjustment we are talking about is currently isolated to the 2021 year-end period. Looking ahead, the long-term prognosis for ASEAN as a whole and Vietnam in particular is a very, very positive one. So what we like to talk about is the trend of regionalization of world trade. Even before the global pandemic, the world economy has been on the verge of a structural change. We all heard of the trade wars between major trading blocs and influential countries. And what has happened is that as protectionism kicks in, there was already certain amounts of nationalism and protectionism that was kicking in, as evidenced by the US looking closer within its own borders with the US first policy, for example. Brexit is the other obvious one. So what the pandemic has merely done is accelerate that trend of regionalization. Now, I talked about the positive effect that has on ASEAN simply because if we look back at the growth engine in Europe in the past decades and the Americas before that, that regionalization and the ability to build larger and stronger regional demand has been a big boost to drive export growth and the growth of domestic economies in the past. So looking to Europe, is that an example of how regionalization can drive the next decade is ASEAN? We think so, and we're positive about that. Even before the pandemic, Vietnam was already the beneficiary of this movement for a number of really good reasons. You know, companies were talking about the China plus one strategy as costs in labor and manufacturing grew in China. The very positive developments in Vietnam that boosted this trend included innovation in the industrial sector, the rising digitalization of the services sector, as I mentioned, higher wage levels in China and increase in shipping costs. So Vietnam, due to its very unique regional advantages, was benefiting from that. Vietnam has investor-friendly government policies, a great geographic location with proximity to China, and a very long coastline with over 320 ports. It has relatively low manufacturing costs and monthly wages, and a very young, hardworking population, currently constituting over 59% of the population, all within the working bracket. So the pandemic, with its disruption in global supplies, with the huge uptick in shipping costs, has simply accelerated that China plus one movement and accelerated the importance of Vietnam in the consideration to diversify regional sources, diversify your manufacturing hubs, and certainly reduce the shipping costs, because, you know, if you look at this chart, current shipping costs have multiplied almost 20 times from prior year lows. So old manufacturing and logistics operating models that depend on the ability to send components anywhere in the world on the back of cheap shipping and logistics have to be reviewed. As an interesting anecdote, I speak to, for example, factories in China that supply the dollar stores in the US. And this change in container costs simply means that that model is not economic anymore, because the shipping costs of a container of cheap goods to the US could outstrip the cost of the product itself. And even in the US, stores like the dollar store are now talking about rebranding themselves as $3 stores and $5 stores. Now, it's not just costs that's the problem. Some of you would have been following shipping news and know that the US is already predicting dire delays in shipping over the holiday period, and presents over Christmas are expected to be delayed well into the next year. And that is a massive social fallout from, you know, what is usually very, very segregated from the normal person's lives. So with that shift in regionalization, before it even happened, the Asian continent already accounts for 1/3 of world trade. It accounts for almost 2/3 of global container shipping traffic and 30 to 40% of international air passengers. So that trend can only continue, and we strongly believe that this century could be led by developments and growth in the Asian region. In Asia, recently, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership was concluded in 2022 between China and 14 other nations. This single free trade agreement covers 2.2 billion people and 30% of the world's economic output. So that is amazing. Now, this chart here shows projected growth in global economies up to 2050, projected, of course. But look at what some of the takeaways are. By 2050, China and India are expected to become the world's two largest economies, well ahead of the US. Both Indonesia and Brazil could make up the rest of the top 5, leapfrogging Germany. The takeaway here is more than half of the largest economies in 2050 are expected to be current emerging and developing countries in ASEAN, and Vietnam figures prominently among them. So now we shift our attention to Vietnam in particular. As I mentioned earlier, there are a couple of very, very positive points for the Vietnam economy going forward. We first start with a 10-year view. The Vietnamese economy is expected to grow at a very strong 75% between 2019 and 2029, helped primarily by a rapid growth in technology-driven manufacturing. Just picking out certain data points here, consumer electronics are expected to grow 123% against the economy, so outstripping the growth of the base economy by a significant amount. IT programming services are projected also to outstrip the base economy growth. Actually, interestingly, is slightly lower than other promising economies. So, for example, in a prior webinar with SG Tech, we talked about the growth potential for Indonesia, which shows a much higher projected forecast. So I'm very interested in hearing from my following speakers later on what other developments might be coming in this sector in IT programming services that could serve to accelerate and change that growth rate. And also, as we move towards digitalization and an information economy, information sectors like legal services, publishing, and broadcasting are expected to outperform. This is a very interesting growth chart. If you look at the left, these are the performance of major ASEAN economies from 2019 and 2022. As we keep stressing for 2021. As we keep stressing for 2020, Vietnam was the only country in that list with positive GDP growth. And as you can see, even projected GDP growth in 2021 is way ahead of most of the rest of the pack. So the positivity we have towards the Vietnamese economy is very, very strong. That is also reflected by the nature of foreign domestic investments into the Vietnamese economy. So the total investment is heavily skewed towards manufacturing. That's the red bar in the chart on the right. It might interest you to know that in 2021, Singapore is one of the top 5 investor countries into Vietnam, alongside Korea, Japan, and China, with the majority of the investment going to the top locations like, of course, Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. Now, all this positive investment has resulted in a 7% export growth rate for Vietnam. The current turnover in import and export, according to the General Statistics Office of Vietnam, is about 543 billion of imports and exports a year. Who are the top import partners for Vietnam? China is ahead of the pack, almost double the next of South Korea. ASEAN is the third major import partner for Vietnam, followed by Japan. The top export partners, the consumers of the goods provided by Vietnam, has USA right at the top of the list, followed by China, Europe, and again, ASEAN and Japan. So it's clear that Vietnam's starting to and has been benefiting from that direct investment into manufacturing, and it's clear evidence that the China Plus One strategy is being executed well over here. From 10 years, we look at a 5-year period, shrinking our horizon, because there's always interesting conclusions to be driven once you change horizons. So this slide shows top 10 fastest and slowest growing sectors in the past year and the forecasts for the next 5 years instead of 10 years. So top growth sectors last year, right at the top of the list, pharmaceuticals, no surprise given the scenario and the global pandemic, followed by base metals, pulp and paper, print and recorded media, etc. In the next 5 years, the balance shifts. So the top growing sector in the next 5 years for Vietnam is expected to be high-tech goods, followed by other transport equipment, accommodation and catering, etc. So while we are in a tech conference, we are also interested in investment opportunities. And indeed, whenever we talk about fintech, fintech is technology and the use case is important. So knowing where the growth areas are, what are the players that could benefit most from your investment in technology and in services is actually part of an essential part of any company's business case for expansion into Vietnam, hence this focus. Slowest growing sectors, as you can see last year, not only did they not grow, but actually shrank. Accommodation and catering, again, clearly the pandemic effect, followed by oil and natural gas extraction, transport equipment, motor vehicles, etc. In the next 5 years, we continue to be a little bearish about oil and natural gas extraction, pulp and paper, agriculture. So there is a shift if you compare the table on top and below, away from what you might consider old world economic sectors to high tech and new world. Now we focus on industrial production. Industrial production consists of the sectors you see on the right: manufacturing, utilities, extraction. And while you see the inevitable dip in 2020 in the red line compared to the rest of the world, Vietnam is comfortably and stably positioned in growth projections above the rest of the world. From a 5-year horizon, we switch to a 1-year horizon. So what's happening between 2021 and 2022? So the picture shifts slightly. The down arrows and up arrows are obvious. So industrial production is forecast to outpace economic growth in 2021. Again, we keep talking about manufacturing. So we expect industrial production to increase by 8.6% overall, before easing to 6.5% growth in 2022. We expect to see manufacturing output expand 11.1% in 2021, driven by growth in the high-tech goods sector. In 2022, manufacturing output is forecast at 7.4% growth, again, driven by growth in the high-tech goods sector. So don't be fooled by the downward arrow. The downward arrow means simply that the growth is slightly less than the prior year, but it doesn't mean a slow or no growth. Construction output is expected to increase by 6.1% in 2021 and 6.3% in 2022. Services is expected to expand 8.2% in 2021, driven by growth in the retail and wholesale distribution sector. In 2022, service sector output growth is forecast at 7.9%, again, driven by growth in retail and wholesale distribution. So that concludes my very brief economic overview of Vietnam. I hope I've excited you in the potential of the market, the need to consider the high growth of Vietnam and its future position as one of the most important manufacturing hubs in the ASEAN region, and indeed for Asia. If you would bear with me, let me spend a few minutes explaining why Western Union Business Solution, or WUBS, is presenting at the SG Tech and the Investment Conference. Essentially, we are here to talk about the partnerships that we can engage in when you see the disruption to profit and the increasing supply chain and trade risks inherent in the world today. So WUBS is a critical partner for many businesses to help cash flow challenges and to plan for the costs of FX in a volatile and new market. We have many modes and an extensive network of partners that you can connect into, ranging from small businesses, corporates, financial institutions, legal institutions, education institutions, and NGOs. By using our network and our connectivity and our FX risk management solutions, we hope to help you focus on your core competencies while using our services to enhance and complement your products. Through our partnerships, we reach the entire Western Union network, which consists of approximately 150 million customers and thousands of business clients globally. We touch more than 1,000 NGOs, 500 financial institutions, more than 700 universities around the world. We offer a complete range of solutions from a technology basis to help support both B2B, B2B2C businesses. Not only do we talk about tech partnerships, but we also talk about co-branding partnerships, Western Union branded partnerships, or even white label setups where you can promote these services as though they are part of your brand and services with multiple integration options in the background for your FX and payments. And finally, some brief example of the types of partnerships that we have helped to enhance, from fintechs that need to cover a gap in their regional payment methods to helping companies perform disbursements across cross-border payments, FX risks, managing controls through their software solution and offering that FX-related payment solution. For software companies, we've worked with companies who disburse payrolls, who manage travel and expenses in order to make integrated payments to end consumers or employees distributed throughout the world through 200 countries and 130 plus currencies. So that concludes my presentation for today. I hope that it was a good use of your time. Over to Ying again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terence. Okay, so gentle reminder to the audience, if you have any questions, please post them into the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end of the last presentation. All right, so next up, let's welcome Mr. Tuan, Chairman and CEO of PAT Consulting Limited. So Mr. Tuan wears many hats. He's a co-founder of the CIO Vietnam community and IT leader community. And he's also the vice chairman of the Ho Chi Minh City Computer Association and also a lecturer for management information systems. Mr. Tuan has many years of experience in implementing management information systems, ERP, SCM, CRM for large enterprises and in Vietnam and also MNCs. So let's welcome Mr. Tuan, please.
Okay, I will share my presentation. Okay, thank you for inviting me to presentation talking about the ACA and the overview of the Ho Chi Minh ICT market. It's my presentation. I have three parts. First, I would like to introduce ACA and sharing with you, all of you, about the ACA activities, main activities in Ho Chi Minh City. And at last, I will overview Ho Chi Minh ICT market. HCA is the first computer associate in Vietnam. And we is biggest associates in computer and other in ICT in Vietnam now. We especially with like the bridge to connectivity between the member in the associates and connectivity with the member with the government and with the overseas partner. And we doing in working with how to thinking about the grow up the capability of the human resource in ICT, and we support to the supplier to the transfer and understanding about the solution for the customer who have a demand. And now is we working for in the five section with the government. We is promoting and lobbying the government IT policy in Ho Chi Minh City and in Vietnam. And we connecting government and business IT. when we give some comment with for example, tax policy or some update for the new policy for the IT Vietnam. And for the domestic member, we support to business matching B2B, B2C, and B2C for the IT company who is our member. And for the overseas member, we support the business matching between the overseas partner with the Vietnam market. And we also bring some company to B2B outside Vietnam, like Japan or the Taiwan or the US. And for the increase support for the increase quality of human resource, we have a networking between the university with the student and the company. For the other associates, we are advising the solution for them. Our organization is Mr. President, Chairman is Mr. Long, and we have 4 vice chairman. I am one of the vice chairman of the ACA, and have 18% with the BOD. It's in each sector for the running. General Secretary is Mr. Tuan. Our partner, we working very closely with the information tech and technology of the Ho Chi Minh City and Ho Chi Minh people committee and other department of the Ho Chi Minh City. We are working with the many organizations in Vietnam like VCCA, YBA, and some other associates. For example, is the Hawa or the other industries associate. For the overseas partner, we working with the Taitra, Kotra, or the Chetro to partnership together. In Vietnam, some member, some the IT solution and SI and many company is bigger in the industry. We working with them to the connectivity with the other outside Vietnam and with the end user. The list in here. And for the media partner, is that we actually have closely with working with the media partner in Ho Chi Minh City. We they join with us and to promote and give some information to the in the media sector. We have some the main activity in the main activity we call the Vietnam ICT Outlook. It's organized by the HCA annual year, and we think that it's ICT even in Vietnam is one biggest even in Vietnam now. And last year because the COVID we stopped, but the last year or the last 2 years we make this, for example, with the cooperate with the Singapore to make it the Fintech Vietnam to even in Vietnam. Each event we have 2,000 guests and some the official from the government, from the vendor. And now we extra our event. That's even to each province or the economic area. For example, in Central Vietnam or in the Mekong Delta region, is that we not organized in Ho Chi Minh City. We bring it to the other economic region to the promote ICT in this region. The last year we in this year before the COVID, we are making is a digital transformation week in Hue City. It's the central of Vietnam. And now is lower. We making it a connectivity activity with sharing technology and market information with other sector. For the each associates, for example, it's a Hoa, is a word associate, is a grow up very fast in Vietnam. The revenue increased 17% per year from the 9 billion US dollars to the 12 or 15 billion US dollars per year now. And we call it the activity you call the ACA talk show. We're talking about the trends of technology, a solution, and in each sector, for example, in the healthcare, in the medicine, or in other manufacturing and education. This is our picture from our activity. In the COVID, we using is a webinar. So for the HQ or the 2-month 1X webinar for the end user. For the promotion and B2B with our overseas, we making it a B2B even online, apply in Vietnam with the Korea or Taiwan or Japan, and we organize some the delegation, Vietnam delegation, to the other country to find out the solution and partnership with the overseas vendor, bring it to Vietnam. For example, the last in 2020, I bring its a delegation from Vietnam to the Taiwan to visit. It's the export Taiwan export to understand it's a technology from the Taiwan, bring it to Vietnam. Did some picture of our activity in the B2B matching between the overseas and partnership in Vietnam. For the human resource, HCAs have a long-term program we call the tour with the university. 3 months per year, we have a tour to all the university of Vietnam, university in Ho Chi Minh City. We're talking about the skill, the trends of technology for the student and to the connectivity between the company and student and the university. This one some picture. And last, I sharing some of the overview Ho Chi Minh City ICT market. I think have 4 key points for ICT market in Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh City. The first is the demand. Demand for the ICT market is increased, and the diversity. Why? Because it's the Vietnam government strongly promote the digital transformation in government management, and demand for the enterprise and SME to the digital transformation, especially in after the COVID, is many new demand for this, and for the new city and new urban is the government support the application for the new technology and for the smart city, smart living, and many demand from the education and transportation and healthcare and so on. And I think the market in Vietnam is for ICT is a grow up increase now. And the second is I mean that is Vietnam continue keeping the position of capacity for outsourcing with the high quality, but is something change in the outsourcing service. Is we know that is the service level moving from the low end to the below level, and is a small, is a high end. And the second is for the outsourcing. It's some outsourcing company in Vietnam now were partnership with the partnership with the company in overseas to develop the product and go into the international market. I talking with some the outsourcing company before, but now they have a good product to sell in US and in the ASEAN region now. And the third is the capability of the human resource in Vietnam in ICT is increased because of the framework of education in university up to date with the framework with the modern university around the world, and it's the English skill of the new student is more better and better time by time. But the last I think is partnership startup. The entrepreneurship in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City is a very dynamic, and they have we call is have a new way for the startup, especially in the fintech, in the new technology. But it's startup in Ho Chi Minh City and in Vietnam have a lack. They have a weakness in the understanding about the business model and the international market. But with the technology, I think is strong enough. Analyze about the ICT Vietnam market. I give some the message here. Is a strength. Strength of the ICT Vietnam market. I think the first is a stable government policy and government support. Is the now is the government have a decision to give a message that Vietnam become the digital country. And the second is like I say, is the demand for the ICT in many sectors. Many sectors increase, and they have a culture to good receive the new technology. And language is friendly with the English. What is the weakness? The first speaker talking about the increase in Vietnam. Okay, it's a good picture, but basically Vietnam, I think, is not a developed country. It's a poor, and budget for the IT is have a limit, not so big. It's a thinking about the making decision to choose or the invest for the ICT is the question for the who is making decision. And the infrastructure of information, I think is have lack, especially about the data and the systematic system is not rich enough. Is making it very difficult, or some effort to the integration together when using is a solution. For the opportunity, I think it's Vietnam is a good opportunity for the new technology solution. It's a good opportunity for technology solution, especially it's a solution SaaS and PaaS and on-base cloud. It's mean that because the budget is not the rich enough, and they understand very well about the cloud solution SaaS is a start to grow up and explore in Vietnam. And one opportunity for the overseas, I think, is to buy or cooperate with the startup in Vietnam. Is a startup, like I say, they have a weakness in the understanding about business model. They weakness in lacks in the international international market, but they have a capability with the new technology. They work hard. They learning skill good. I think it's opportunity for the overseas partner. It's a trade. It's working with the Vietnam market. I think the overseas partner facing with some trade is a slow decision time. Maybe demand have, but the time making decision not fast enough. Not fast enough. I think it's one thinking when you coming to the Vietnam market. And the second is if you have no strong network enough, maybe you have a difficulty to grow up with your business in Vietnam. Is a trade facing with trade. But I just give one is a good picture for the ICT Vietnam. For the COVID is a lockdown, is a many difficult in other sector like manufacturing, shoemaker, textile, or the garment, so on. But it's ICT is a grow up. Is a grow up. Is many company in the online e-commerce and the logistic online, and it's grow up in Vietnam. Is a revenue is grow up. I joined with the member to qualify and verify is the IT company in Vietnam. I'm very surprised because it's the revenue is a grow up, is an increase on the pandemic, and the outsourcing company is a grow up, is a increase of revenue. I think it's now is Vietnam for ICT is a good opportunity. And this one is my presentation. If you have any question, I will discussion and share my understanding about the Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh ICT market, and some my experience about the partnership with the Vietnam partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuan. Next up, we would like to welcome Tony. Tony is an experienced entrepreneur in the seafood space with annual sales revenue reaching over 1 billion clocked around the world. So he was accorded the 40 under 40 Future Seafood Leaders by Intrafish and have been implementing sustainable aquaculture projects and environmental projects in Vietnam and across Southeast Asia. Tony is also an advocate for sustainable aquaculture and often speaks at related expos and events. But today, he's going to bring us beyond the world of aquaculture and touch on the topic of fintech development in Vietnam. So let's welcome Tony, please.
Thank you, Jing. Thanks for introduction, and happy to share the slides, please. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share some points about the development of fintechs in Vietnam. The key points I will cover today from 5 points. First is the potential of Vietnamese fintech market. Secondly, will be the picture of cooperation between fintech companies and the bank industry. Third, I will share with you the top 25 financial brand leads published by Forbes Vietnam, and 4 big trends of fintechs in Vietnam. And finally, like Mr. Tuan has shared, we will discuss about what to make Vietnam fintech grow. So we can understand in short that fintechs is the applications of technology to help customers to access and use financial services in a simple and easy way with lower cost than the traditional ways of doing it. In recent years, Vietnam fintech has developed rapidly, having a positive impact on the development of our society, especially promoting the trend of non-cash payment in the society. In Vietnam, there are about 200 fintech companies operating in various fields, such as payment, intermediaries, P2P lending, blockchain technology, mobile payment, investment, crowdfunding, credit scoring, which is a good potential, EKYC, insurance, and recently we have seen the emerging mobile money, digital banking, and the virtual money. Next slide, please. Vietnam promises to be an extremely potential market for fintech development. According to a report from We Are Social Statistics, Vietnam population as of 2021 is about 97.95 million people, in which 70.3% of population has access to the internet, and the number of mobile subscribers reached 154 million. So we can see that each Vietnamese person has more than one mobile number, of which 64% use mobile internet. Young population and high rates of mobile usage and internet access, often using smartphone to meet our necessities daily, such as shopping, banking and finance, and entertainment and watch videos. We spend a lot of time watching videos on mobile phones, like other countries in Southeast Asia. Another interesting factor that the percentage of people in bank accounts in Vietnam is only 31%, according to a report from Merchant Margin in 2021. According to the State Bank of Vietnam, nearly half of the people with bank accounts do not have access to credit. According to the World Bank, the level of credit access of Vietnamese people through loans is only 46.84%, but only 18.45% borrows from financial institutions. This shows that people are accessing loans in many different ways, like borrowing from friends or home, or unofficial channels, or black market. Sometimes it's dangerous. It's related to mafia. In particular, young people tend to borrow for consumption instead of saving like previous generations, which is also one of the factors promoting people need to access credit services. Next slide, please. So the cooperation between fintechs and banking industry is very big in Vietnam. It's a very different voice of Vietnam compared to other markets. Is that fintechs does not compete with corporate banking and work closely with them and the credit institutions to promote customer access and enhance the customer experience through technology applications. This is also an important factor to promote fintech development in the coming time. For example, one of the necessary factors to be able to access official loan is credit scoring. According to the announcement from the Vietnam National Credit Information Center, the CIC, the corporates of Vietnam's credit information has reached from 41.8% in 2015 to 59.6% in 2020. Although this is higher than the average of Asia Pacific region, Vietnam has still more than 40.4% of the population with no credit information, and with more than 70% of the population living in the rural areas. access to financial service there is very limited. So there is a huge potential market for banks and credit institutions and fintech companies to cooperate and exploit through credit scoring models. Besides that, one of the areas where fintechs can coordinate with banks and credit institutions is related to loan to the SMEs. SMEs account for 97% of the total number of enterprises in Vietnam and contribute 45% of our GDP. However, access to the official credit sources is not easy and simply due to lack of the information security and also access. This can be improved if fintechs is applied, building a credit scoring system for SMEs through analyzing and processing data. So this method will help reduce the appraisal cost, increase the accuracy of credit scoring, and simplify the loan procedures, which is most of the SME needs, so they can get access to finance easier than working with complicated procedures at the moment. Next slide, please. So I would like to share with you the top 25 financial brands list in Vietnam. We found that the value of some Vietnamese banks has surpassed and approached strong competitors in the region. For example, in mid-July, Vietcombank's capitalization surpassed Commercial Siam Bank, the SCB, the Thailand's largest bank, and on the same level as Malaysia's largest financial institution, the Maybank. Compared with the other two competitors, Vietcombank's total asset is still far apart, but this is highly valued by the market, including the foreign financial institution, based on the raw potential of the financial market in Vietnam, the internal strength, and the business role of Vietcombank in Vietnam market. And the calculation method to identify these top 25 brands is from Forbes Vietnam. They use the brand value of companies in a specific field in order to expand the calculation area and focus on each field instead of putting on the brands in the same basket. Next slide, please. Next one, teaching. This is the previous one. Thank you. Back, please. Yeah, this one. Thank you. In 2021, with the method of Forbes USA, Forbes Vietnam quantifies the value of a brand through the financial figures based on its ability to generate profits. There is a general rule: the profits of the businesses are partly related by tangible and intangible assets. So the brand has to contribute to the profit, that is the brand value. For the calculation, they determine the profit generated from the intangible assets, and they minus the profit generated from the tangible assets. So brand value is determined from the above profits after allocating the brand contribution, coefficient in each industry, and the average PE coefficient of that industry at the time of calculation. So we can see the familiar names like Vietcombank, Techcombank, Vietinbank, and other securities company and fintech company. Next slide, please. So the four big trends of fintech in Vietnam. First, so in 2020, the banking industry has the best profit growth in recent years, despite the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Besides the negative side, the epidemic and the social distancing also profoundly changed the financial behavior of the customers of the banks. More and more people using online banking through fintech applications. The first trend of fintech in Vietnam is strong digital transformation of the banks. So making the cashless payment and big data become more and more popular in Vietnam. The number of 24/7 instant money transfers increased from 1.1% to 66.6% during the period of 2015 and 2020, only 5 years. Operating costs, of course, reduced significantly. And the CEO of the Techcombank in the recent report said that banks that do not participate in the digital transformation to keep up with the increasing requirements of customers will face many challenges, including their survival. Next slide, please. So the second trend is after the digital transformation race is the CASA race between the banks. In the nutshell, banks create many advanced features for mobile web and mobile app, mostly free of charge, to encourage the customer to more online transactions. So when transacting, the customer often leave the above balance on the account. So with millions of customers, the banks manage to balance is up to tens of thousands of billions of dollars. For customers, banks will account this balance in the demand deposits category, which has a low interest rate of only 0.1% per year. So in the output, the banks can use a part of this for lending. And a bank with a higher ratio of demand deposits to total customer deposits, the CASA ratio, will be able to mobilize more cheap capital sources and improve the operational efficiency. So as a leading bank in the system with the special customer role, Vietcombank has been the group of banks with the highest CASA rate for many years. And in the list of 25 leading financial brands, we've seen that Vietcombank is on the top with the value of more than $700 million. Next slide, please. The third trend in fintech in Vietnam is about the bank's assurance has been booming in recent years. For example, in 2020, Vietcombank's net interest fee on the services increased by nearly 55% to more than 6.6 billion VND. And this bank recorded more than 1.5 thousand billion VND in prepaid bank's insurance fees at the end of the year, as according to their exclusive agreement with FWD Vietnam. The total value of this contract is more than $400 million, the largest to date, and that is in the last 15 years. And also the cross-selling insurance products generate great income for the banks. Next slide, please. So approaching the international governance standard is another positive management trend of the Vietnamese banking system. In 2016, 10 banks were piloted to deploy Basel II, a strategic and qualitative solution that creates conditions for Vietnamese banks to meet their development and integration capacity. In 2018, the first 3 banks to reach the finish line ahead of schedule was OCB, VIB, and Vietcombank. And in mid-2021, according to the announcement of 18 banks in the total of 34 banks recognized to apply the capital adequacy standard under Basel II. Some banks even meet on the 3 Basel II pillars, such as VIB, VP Bank, and TP Bank. The bankers assert that the implementation of Basel II standards help the Vietnamese banks increase their resistance and control risk and operate effectively. The application of the Basel II and then Basel III not only improves the credit rating, lowers the cost of mobile capital, and enhance the prestige in the international market, but also to help the banks to manage and develop sustainably. It's very important for a developing market like Vietnam. Next slide, please. So there are some points I would like to share about the future of Vietnam FinTech role. The State Bank of Vietnam has submitted to the government to issue the legal documents for FinTech. Like previously, Mr. Tuan shared that our government has been supporting strongly for our FinTech industry to grow. In particular, the Prime Minister signed the decision 316 approving the pilot development of mobile money services, allowing the use of telecommunications accounts to pay for goods and services of small value in the rural areas and remote areas, which are still the main areas in Vietnam. Next slide, please. So one of the very important factors affecting the development of fintech in Vietnam is the impact of the government policies on applying the technology in financial sector to promote non-cash payments and also e-government paying for public services. And the government have the strategy with the goal of 80% of adults having a bank account by 2025. And another important factors is, according to World Bank, sandbox is also an important tool for the development of fintech, and our government in Vietnam is also supporting it with a proposal to develop a agree on a mechanism for control testing of the financial technologies to implement it in the near future. Next slide, please. And it's some numbers about the reports on foreign direct investment in the first 8 months of 2021. So in August 2021, the Ministry of Planning and Investment has reported the total newly registered and also adjusted and paid-in capital of share purchase of foreign investor reached 19.12 billion US dollar. So by August 2021, the whole country had more than 34,000 valid projects with the total registered capital of more than 400 billion US dollars. Yeah, next slide, please. So as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic affect all countries globally, and Vietnam is not an exception. However, with what we have done before, we strongly believe that Vietnamese businesses will be able to bounce back thanks to our large domestic consumer market, thanks to an abundant young workforce and growth potential of the whole economy, as well as the ability of the enterprises to adapt and manage. So we are confident that the pandemic will be under control and Vietnam's economy will operate normally again when each individual join hands to take measures and to keep ourselves and our family safe and continue to develop our economy. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Come on for your listening.
Thank you, Tony, for the very comprehensive sharing on fintech. Yeah, so next up, we would like to invite Mr. Indu. Mr. Indu is the CEO and founder of Fingrow, a fintech company. So with his wealth of experience from working in the financial world, Mr. Indu built and launched the fintech enterprise Fingrow in 2014, which focuses on remittance, payments, and loans. The company now has more than 60 partnerships with financial institutions across multi-geographies, including Vietcombank, Citigroup, and neobanks. So prior to starting Fingrow, Mr. Indu had held stints in various financial institutions like Fullerton Financial Holdings from Singapore, Sofipo, and also Citigroup. Let's welcome Mr. Indu, please.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So, taken a few notes, just want to add a few more things on top. 6.6% growth in the region in Vietnam is phenomenal. I think that's a very good data. There's a lot of momentum in Vietnam. The demographics basically dictate everything that happens over there, including progressive government. Like Mr. Tuan said, decision making is slow, but I think it is cautious. It's guarded, I would say. So I think it's a good thing. It's not such a bad thing. So especially in fintech, it's very disruptive. It can change things. It can change things for good if you take it slow. And quick disruptions are good in urban environments. Rural environments have a very different dynamics. And some of the notes from Tony on the financial inclusion numbers, these are very similar to the global problems. Globally, they are the same. All emerging markets are facing the same problems. Lack of infrastructure, the lack of jobs, or not having enough banks, not having enough branches, less of a number of accounts in these places, and lack of education, lack of access to mobile technology. So all of these things are the existing problems in most of the emerging markets. And I think we are here to highlight some of these issues so that we can encourage more fintechs to come and solve these problems. So some startling numbers are that there are close to 11,000 fintechs that have come up over the last less than a decade, and trying to solve problems that nearly 25,000 banks have been trying to solve over the last several centuries. So just, we are talking just in about less than 10 years, about 11,000 fintechs. That's amazing. That's a lot of entrepreneurs looking forward to help the world. So let Minh come in, and thank you for this time. Let me just give you a few insights. So Fingrow, we started focusing on the public sector with a joint venture with the public sector, trying to solve problems from a government perspective by launching national payment ecosystems, loans to small businesses through digital platforms, digitization of government benefit disbursement programs, and disaster relief disbursements, completely focused in Mexico, where we were the only ones to drive the entire initiative. And we're very happy to have been participated in that initiative. 2018 onwards, we opened up and we went a bit beyond, started looking at edge computing, fog computing for rural inclusion, providing telecommunication facility to drive financial inclusion in the rural areas. Now we have access to being able to open global bank accounts for people, including migrants in the US, and loan marketplace for consumers, small business loans, and now in the process of launching an agro loan fintech as well. This is the next thing that we are trying to do. We are in the process of doing that. We are going live in about 100 countries in some of these products, not all of them, because some are very regional focused. The others are kind of that has the ability to expand globally. So, I think Tony covered most of, between Tuan and Tony, they kind of covered most of what I have to say, but just to give you an idea, so what is fintech? It's a use of technology to deliver financial services in a better way. And what kind of technologies today command the growth in this particular sector would be the AI, you have machine learning, distributed ledgers, and blockchain technologies are the most emerging financial technologies that exist today. And then, many more to come, I guess. So over 30% of the large financial organizations are putting money into artificial intelligence. This is becoming a key thing for customer acquisition as well as for your own data analytics and to be able to serve your clients better. About 75% of the financial services in the firms have adopted blockchain some way or the other, directly or indirectly. They have adopted blockchain technology as a part of their production system and process by now. Fintechs are now playing an outsized role in disaggregating the financial services value chain in fundamental ways, making it more customer-centric, nimble, and efficient. So who could that be? Could be an MNO, a mobile network operator, could be a bank, could be a tiny startup, could be a social media app, or could be a chat application. All of these technologies have the ability to go and become a fintech. It's all about connecting people to resources, right? So, looking at the numbers, we are talking about 105 billion that flowed into this fintech investment market in 2020. Just the first half of 2021, 250 fintechs have raised money. That's about roughly 74 billion. And we're just talking half year. And that's 1,200 deals approximately. And there are 157 fintech unicorns as of now. Between 2015, this number was somewhere close to 1,275. Of course, there's been a dip because of multiple factors in between, but look at the growth that we have achieved. This sector has actually achieved. Just half year, we've done about 74. We still have another half years of numbers to come forward. I'm pretty sure this is going to touch close to 140 billion in terms of total investments. Technology, see, the core driver behind all of this is technology. The moment mobile technology came forward, our lives changed, our communication changed, our knowledge, our base, everything has actually changed. We've become more mobile. You don't have to be in one place. You can actually be a farmer, try doing business from wherever they are. They don't need to carry stuff and go because you have somebody else coming to pick up. On-demand services have increased. Our lives have actually changed because of the whole mobile technology. Today's average citizen, unlike the past, they talk about what value adds do we get, what controls do we have, transparency, security, me and mine. So these are the kind of conversations that the average citizen have today, and it's kind of different from the past. Like we had one landline, and at some point we would have to wait for a call. These were called the trunk calls, and today we are so instant today. And what we speak in terms of technology and communication is way different from what we used to talk before. So Vietnam, I think today's and tomorrow's users. I've lived in that country. I love Vietnam. The potential of the country is so huge. Youngsters, I think they're the key factors. The key thing in the country basically is the demographics. And they, some of the things which have been, and this is not a kind of a research to knowledge. This has actually come from my own experience as well as some data out there. 13 to 23-year-olds, they basically are omnipresent on social media. They use more apps, providing international platforms a space in Vietnamese life. And they like anything that serves a higher purpose. That is phenomenal. I mean, they want it to be justified. Why do we have to use something? It has to be very clear. Sharing simple bite-sized messages, to be consumed via mobile. Emojis, 47% of young Vietnamese would rather express their emotions, with these emoticons than use words. This is amazing because we are talking about mobile payments. We are talking about stuff. We're talking about bite-sized messages, basically carrying large amount of resources. P2P, right? So they don't fear criticizing the social media as well. So I think they're bold. This generation in Vietnam is what's going to drive this entire transformation in the country. There's some age, the younger demographics use more number of apps compared to the older generation. They're vibrant, they're hard and smart working people as well. So there's enough to happen in the country. Fintech is now becoming a new subsector. People have started adopting this into the SIC codes, and there's a number of places where you can actually see a drop down with fintech written there. This was not the case before. So you've got the cloud computing, you have blockchain, AI, open banking APIs have become a normal thing these days, and it's creating a lot of digital leaders with faster revenue growth. So many unicorns out there. Every single country has got successful fintechs coming out, and very, very happy to see that. Companies can, fintech companies can leverage new technology to create new and better financial services for consumers and businesses by using new software applications, processes, and business models. There's so many high-paying jobs, are going to be in this sector. And the thing is, who's not hiring in fintech? So pretty much every fintech company, go to LinkedIn, you find, so many companies hiring. Everybody's into something to do with financial technology, and everybody's hiring. So it's a very hot sector coming up. And all of this goes back to a place where there are more youngsters, but you have the ability to learn, ability to react to this change. And those are the people to gain. That's the generation to gain from this, high growth sector. There's some data which came up very interesting when I was just doing a research a couple of days back. There's the average global bank employee generates about $400,000 in revenue, whereas an average Chinese fintech e-commerce generates about 16 million of revenue a year. And that's that's about productivity. That's technology driving this entire growth, right? So there are many companies, there are many geographical trends. While US and Canada, it's all about enabling new fintech. Eastern Europe is looking at acquiring new customers overseas because they don't have enough space to grow. Small country, small space, 5, 10 million people, 20 million, 15. So they need to get out and do what they have to do. So they're looking for bigger markets to get in. The Middle East and Africa, they're into offline payments because you have an internet connectivity problem. Likewise, in Latin America as well, we have a huge problem with internet. Infrastructure is limited to urban locations, semi-urban locations. Rural locations, we're not well connected, like in many other countries as well. So I think there's a huge potential for offline payments over there. Mexico and Caribe, Central and South America, I think started off almost at the same time when everybody kicked off this whole fintech trend, but have been focusing completely on doing business with small business sectors and consumer loan applications. And they're a lot more evolved, but they're not yet there. But they're close to, Mexico alone has about close to 500 fintechs, and each one playing its part to solve all these big problems. And Southeast Asia, it's all about developing the next super app. That is amazing. You already have big apps, successful technology companies. Now it's all about doing who's going to be the next super app. I think that's the key, trend in that region. Emerging and evolving fintech streams. Tony's already covered it. I don't want to waste too much time. I think there's so much happening. RegTech is coming up in a big way. Lending has been existing. It's been there for a while now. Remittances over the last 3-4 years has actually taken a lot of shape. And personal finance has been around. Billing and payments, I think that has been around in some way or the other, with some, mostly with B2B. Wealth management, I think that is taking off in a big way, especially after Robinhood. There are a lot of these companies who wants to get in and try doing something similar. There are a few great startups in Southeast Asia in this segment as well. Most in a current unbundled implementation. So why did I put this slide? This is basically to say that these are all unbundled implementations. So there was a time when these technology companies used to sell one big technology to all these banks, and then that kind of try to cover everything, and which cost millions and millions of dollars. So things have changed, and now things are all just a box full of solutions, and you can just take one by one out and try to plug into a banking system to solve the problem. So these are the things that are happening. So these are, I don't want to call them microservices because these are, services, big services by itself, but these are kind of modules, and this is how the implementation and growth is happening in the banking sector. Broadly, so online banking and security, mobile banking and apps and security, automatic savings, bots and instant messaging, customer service, voice banking is something which is got a huge potential. There are a few startups already there, and text fraud alerts and identity theft and financial protection services. So these are like, just pull out one module, fix it to solve a big problem. And that's, one of those unbundled implementations that are going on right now. Major banks and tech leaders, constantly focusing on building and forging alliances in payments, some consolidations and moments for some market leaders in disaggregation, unbundle traditional financial services activities into individual core functions. In artificial intelligence, you have a general purpose technology that is reshaping the nature of both work and commerce. Open API, a big one, which is now pretty much covering Southeast Asia. Latin America is there. North America is also completely going in towards Open API. There's so many startups and so much of implementation happening there as well, with payments as a platform. And then you have IoT with MPOS and beacons and sensors. That's been around, but it's evolving. That's evolving, and it's actually becoming something very, very potential as we speak. I like this slide. I saw this on the internet several months back, and I liked it. I wanted to show this to you, that how Amazon is unbundling services that are offered by Chase, for business. So you have pretty much Amazon Pay powering something. You've got the back end and the front end offered by somebody. I mean, it's kind of covering this one big company trying to cover all that is required within the payment sector, within this whole fintech segment, with another large company, at the back, right? So you have the business prime, you've got the cards, you've got the lending, you have the utility reloads, you've got, you have the cash in, you've got the wallets, you've got the payments, you've got, the gateways, and pretty much being covered by, and Amazon today has the capability of doing that. So that's how services are being done. So individually, each of these things are basically fintech, fintech ideas or fintech startups, right? Each of these are basically a fintech project. This is a 2019 story, but largely just wanted to, pay attention on the size. So lending, personal finance, and payments are still the largest, sectors where the money is being driven into. So there's a lot of valuation there, and a few startups, a few unicorns basically leading this entire fintech innovation globally. More diversified subsegments where there are high demands for skills as well. But if you see, there are so many other areas there inside that also has a high potential. I think it's just a matter of time. There's a maturity when some of these small bubbles will become much larger in size as we move forward. Wanted to mention this because, for the benefit of the youngsters in Vietnam, fintech skill combination, you need to have a regulatory, banking, insurance kind of a background or a software background. Need to have an entrepreneurship, somewhere up in your head. Need to know exactly how to deal with those ambiguities and stuff when it comes to startups, either driving a startup or working for a startup. Then project management skills, then data analytics, cybersecurity, operations, and alliances. Alliances is another key area because you need to know. I mean, today you don't need to rebuild, you don't need to invent the wheel all over again. You need to find the right partners to be able to grow. So you need to be creative, critical systems thinking, adaptive learning, etc., etc. That's the end of the slide. This is just a quick introduction. Not relevant because I think it was already mentioned before. So happy to take any questions at the end of the session. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Indu. So let's welcome the rest of the panelists back on stage. And we have also invited a special guest from Enterprise Singapore to join us for the Q&A. So meanwhile, can I also invite our audience to post your questions into the Q&A box while I set up the panelists discussion? Okay, I think we have everyone. All right, so thank you once again for joining us at this session. So we have come to the Q&A section of this webinar. So please do identify yourself and also share your questions in the Q&A box if you have any. So I also mentioned that we have welcomed a new member onto our panel as well, Mr. Leon Tsai from Enterprise Singapore. He's actually based in Vietnam, covering the market. So, okay, maybe we want to invite Leon to say a few words before we start. Would you like to share anything?
Okay, thanks, Ying. Hi, everyone. Sorry, joining the call late, so I missed out all the good content earlier. So as Ying mentioned, I'm from Enterprise Singapore, based in Vietnam for the past 3 years, currently in Ho Chi Minh City. Happy to take any question you might have about the market opportunity and how ESG could help in some way or another. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Okay, I do see one question posted to Terence regarding the 2022 forecast of Vietnam's high-tech sector. Jesse is asking, why is the forecast lower as compared to 2021? Do you have any insight to share with us, Terence?
Sure. Thank you. So we are, again, very positive about the effect of manufacturing on Vietnam's economic forecasts, especially the high-tech sector. However, there are greater global trends that could put a brake on unfettered growth, namely the disruptions and costs of shipping that's causing component prices to go up, delays in moving the necessary components to different locations for manufacturing, etc. The other great trend is the well-known chip shortage that essentially is holding up the potential to manufacture as quickly and as large volumes as you might otherwise expect. Happy to share more in other sessions if you want to talk privately with me.
Okay, thank you, Terence, for the answer. Any other inputs from the other panelists on the forecast for 2022 as compared to this year?
In my idea is because in the number of the annual of the ICT Vietnam is included in the export from the OEM or the manufacturing vendor in Vietnam like a Samsung or the Apple, and the 2021 may be higher than the 22. I think it's they forecast it some decrease is volume from the Samsung or the Apple or other vendor in Vietnam export to overseas. This one is maybe one reason.
Okay. Perhaps also due to global shortage of maybe manufacturing chips.
Yes.
Yeah, and some of the other required products for manufacturing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I see a question from Calvin. He's asking whether is English a good mode of communication in Vietnam, or should businesses send reps that understand Vietnamese? Yeah, because so far in his communication with the business leaders, sometimes language barrier can be an issue. Yeah, any comments on this from anyone?
Maybe I can chime in on that since I'm based in the market for 3 years and I can't say that I'm fluent in Vietnamese. So the simple answer is useful to know Vietnamese, but it's not a stumbling block or something that you can't overcome. Especially people in the key cities, Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, I think most of them do speak English. And if we are dealing with especially many of the younger generation, fresh graduate, most of them can communicate in English. The challenge is, I think, before we talk about business, sometimes it's about building relationship, and beyond discussion over a table, right? Sometimes it's harder to build a strong relationship if you can't communicate in the native language, which I don't think this is unique to Vietnam itself. I think any market, if you are talking about China, then of course maybe Chinese can help to build a relationship beyond the business talk. What some or many of the companies does is they do hire somebody in the market to, somebody they trust as some of the translator, or to break the ice, at least for the start. But eventually engaging the key partner or the decision maker, and I think the business owner should be the one engaging the relationship on. Yeah, just a few cents of my thoughts on that.
Okay. What about Tony or Tuan?
Yeah, I agree with Leon about the ability of foreign language communications of Vietnamese enterprises, and also as with my experience doing international business for more than 16 years, I've seen so many young entrepreneurs in Vietnam can communicate very well in English, especially the one in tech companies, because they need English first before they learn technologies in the universities, and then after that they have experience working for many FDI companies invested in Vietnam before they do their own startup business. And I have seen, I have met some young entrepreneurs in tech companies doing MBA programs from foreign universities, like myself. Some of my classmates in the MBA programs, they are in tech industries as well. So I think that it's not hard to communicate with Vietnamese partners in English. And besides, due to the pandemic, Vietnamese governments and also organizations like HCA from Mr. Tuan have organized so many activities to teach entrepreneurs in Vietnam doing online meetings via Zoom, or selling products internationally online, like on Alibaba or Amazon. And of course, everything must be in English. So I think it's no problem. Yeah.
I think it's English is not big problem. Time by time, it's the main reason is because now is family, the parent is thinking about the teaching English from the very earlier, from the kindergarten, and now is they can learn English very well through the internet environment. And the second, I think, is the youth of Vietnam. It's especially in the ICT, they thinking about the opportunity to work overseas. Many is engineer graduated from the university in Ho Chi Minh City, now working in US, and they have a motivate to working with overseas, like US, mainly in the US, and is a nearby is Singapore or the other country by English, right? I think it's a main reason. And the second, like Tony says, and because the youth are facing the challenger, who would like to become the working with the FBI or the overseas company with a higher salary, they must learn English. And I think it's a motivates from the youth very strongly. Myself, I'm very old. I have no opportunity to work, to learn, to study overseas, just inside Vietnam. But I must learn English to talk with you today. It's many people ask me, hey, you work, you learning in the overseas in the US or Canada university? I say no, I stay in Vietnam. Okay, and I think it's, the English no problem. Time in Vietnam. He said, don't worry about it. But I agree, it's a learn. Is how to making is a friendship, is a believe together with the partnership in Vietnam. I think the culture in Vietnam look like China or in the Japan, but it's not quite different. I working with the many partner with from the US and the Japan or the Taiwan. It's quite different. In US, they would like to making decisions fast, and the quality and the capacity and so on, technology, but working with the Japan or the China or the Taiwan different. The first, working with the making the friendship together, believe together, and after that, they will working with you when you come into the Vietnam. I agree with Leon. Maybe he have a 3 years in Ho Chi Minh City, but the culture in the South of Vietnam quite a little bit different with the North of Vietnam. I think in the North of Vietnam, the more political, but in the South of Vietnam, more the commercial is some different between the two regions.
Okay, thank you, Tuan, for the insights, and also thank you, Tony, for the insights.
There's I want
yeah.
to just add one quick comment. So there are these practical solutions to this problem, right? You can send an email, and people do translate if there is a difficulty. And most of the time, today Google has improved, thank God. So it's easy. It's not like 10 years back or 5 years back. Google used to be really ridiculous. Now it is way better. Two, I think this is a challenge in any country with a different language, where English is not the primary language. And the third thing is patience. I think you've got to be a little patient about how you deal with got to just take the time. It takes a little bit of time for things to happen. Vietnam is also an expat haven. Expats have learned how to live in Vietnam. A lot of expats there, and they have managed it, and they have somehow figured out the right way to communicate to be more efficient. I think it's about blending in, and it's not, I think, about blending out. I think it's blending in. I think Vietnam is very different that way. It's a progressive country, and youngsters are very progressive. They're taking short-term classes. You find them taking on the job these English lessons and stuff, language courses. So, my personal experience, we've had a number of people working there, and most of them had some form of short-term certificate classes, taken. And I don't think, of course, for me, maybe it was initially a bit challenging, but then I found my way in. I didn't expect my colleagues to find their way out,
Yeah, thanks for that. So in summary, language may be a problem, but culturally, it's more important to understand your partner, have the patience to understand them. And also technology, since we're all in the tech space, can overcome anything, any difficulty. And SG Tech, we do have a lot of members who are in this natural language processing space that can help to do translations or even on live interpretation. Yeah. So we do have such solutions readily available. If you require, you can let us know. I can introduce the technologies to you. All right. So next question. What is, how open are the Vietnamese companies to doing business online, right? Because we did mention a little bit about the cultural aspects of things. Are the companies in Vietnam ready to sign deals online without meeting their partner, or is some form of physical presence still required in the longer term? Maybe this is an open question.
From me, is I look and see in the COVID-19. And I think it's have some changing very fast behavior from the connectivity between the end user and client with the solution vendor. Is for the consumer. Is everybody thinking about the easy to use now? Is don't talking about the using the wireless electronic wireless payment online or the order online and something like this. Is very popular in Vietnam now, especially in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City, because the lockdown is a 3 months. You know, it's a lockdown 3 months, and the people buying, paying everything in the online environment. And another, because the pressure to changing is a management system inside the company, and the company and they, because the lockdown, they work for home. And I'm very surprised for the big system like ERP, supply chain, and now it's pick up online, implementation online, and the go live online. It's a quite try to image past 5 years never. They thinking about the very complex system like ERP, merge many working together, meeting, the brainstorming for the blueprint. But now they working from the Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi to implementation together. And I think the change mindset from the company, from the end user in Vietnam changing very fast by COVID-19.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tuan. Tuan, you wanted to say something?
No, I think Mr. Tuan mentioned correctly. So COVID-19 do have some positive side. So they really forces a lot of changes within Vietnam to digitalize. I mean, if you want to survive, you adapt to the environment. So for those who adapted digital transformation to ensure business continuity, they will continue to do so. When physical meeting is not possible, they will close deal online. And I think it's more prominent in the tech sector, where they are already used to using technology to meet up with foreign potential investors. And even before COVID, they will be having like calls like this. But that said, I think having a physical presence in the market in terms of after sales, customer support, deployment of solutions, these are things that I think is an added advantage for Singapore solutions who are looking for clients in the market, because it shows your commitment. You are in the market, and if there's anything wrong, there's somebody to turn to. They don't have to worry about time difference and unable to reach the partner because nobody is based in the market. So we do observe some of the opportunities were given to companies who have a local presence in Vietnam, and also a track record vis-a-vis a company who only have presence overseas. So that is a difference. But I also understand it's always a chicken and egg thing. When you don't have a pipeline of clients, you might not want to set up in the market. And if you don't want to set up in the market, you might continue to lose out opportunity that was pushed to you. So some of my thoughts from there.
Just a general note here, Ying, that prior to my current role, I was representing a fintech company and payments solutions e-wallet provider. I was able to effectively hold business meetings with potential partners in Vietnam using Zoom and similar online technology. So prior to COVID, that was possible. Certainly, there's more trend towards that now.
Okay, that's very great to hear. And very, I think, very reassuring to our companies who are interested in Vietnam as well. Yeah. All right. So, what innovations do you foresee shaking up the payments industry in Vietnam over the next 5 years? So, I think this one, we have 3 fintech experts, yeah, who can answer this question.
Can I just weigh in before
Sure,
Indu
sure.
or Tony talk about blockchain and crypto, which are obviously trends to watch, but also regionally, we need to look at the various initiatives that are trying to change the flow of global payments around here. For example, with Singapore, there's been a great effort to link up our fast and pay now networks to similar networks in neighboring countries. A lot of projects have already been announced to facilitate consumer to consumer payments. And certainly that's a trend to watch as the region gets more connected. On a business to business payment basis, the BIS, or Bank for International Settlements, has a BIS Innovation Hub in Singapore that's already trialing bank-to-bank cross-border payments using new technology to reduce friction and costs in transactions. So, governments have an eye on reducing trade friction, and that's certainly going to shape our region going forward.
Okay, thank you, Terence. Tony and Indu, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add, I think with this whole trend with this COVID and work at home, the cybersecurity risk levels have gone up. And I think that's going to be one key area that'll grow at the back end, to fix some of the front end problems. And definitely instant messaging and bot is going to be very, very popular. I think that's across the globe as well, because it's going to simplify things, and AI, artificial intelligence, blockchain is a must. I think blockchain is the future. There's no choice. If you want to make things, transparent, fast, and low cost, that's the way to look at. But I think, from a general sense, AI is going to play a big role, because you need, it's a changing, with the changing demographics, users, and the needs. All of those things have changed over the last two years. So you need to pick up new cues and faster, at a much faster pace, and not wait for 5 years to come up with a solution. So I think these are the three things for me which are key apart from blockchain, as commented by Terence.
Okay, thank you. What about Tony?
Yeah, I have no comment on this. After hearing from Terence and Indu, I have provided very details.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I think I'm mindful of time. So maybe one last question from Kelly. Are there any cultural aspects of things that Singapore companies should note when working with their Vietnamese counterpart? Any things to note? Maybe Lon?
Based on observation, I think Mr. Tuan brought up an interesting point earlier about differences with culture in the people in the north and the south, right? So you have to take note that perhaps you did need more time to warm up to people in the north. A few rounds of discussion before you dive down into exactly the business dealing. But people in the south, they tend to be more direct, so they are more willing to share exactly the challenge statements they might have and the type of criteria for the partners they are looking for. So it's something that maybe more comfortable with a Singapore company. But again, I might be generalizing, but this is some of the differences that companies do share. But as usual, I think for any cross-border business dealing, as long as you are respectful to the prospective partner you're dealing with, and truthful, respectful, these are the things that I think are all well appreciated. And one thing to add is that I think Singapore, a brand name, do stand well in the Vietnam market. We have consistently been one of the top foreign investors in Vietnam. And both the government and the companies are appreciative of Singapore investment in Vietnam, and which help to also create jobs in the market. So some positive note on that.
Okay.
For this, I add something, because now, like I say, it's English not problem. It's something different. Small different culture within the North Vietnam, but now I think it's looking for the optimistic, and I'm many is for the new tech. Many is founder come from the other developed country like US or Canada. They working for the Google, for the other big famous company, come back to Vietnam to start up, and they have a culture from the Europe. They understand the employee inside your company, and they have a good understanding about the culture in Vietnam. I think is a good potential partner. I was mentor with one company. They have come back from the US. They have a scholarship from the Cambridge, come back to Vietnam, and after 5 years now, he is have a very good company for the logistics. And I talking with the many companies, small companies, startup with the fintech or the RPA is in the each piece of the fintech solution, you know, and the company for the logistics and winning of the global world championship in the startup company in the logistics section in the US. And now I think it's a one key point when the partner from the Singapore or from the other country come to Vietnam. I think is a good potential partner for the new technology. I work very closely with the AI group in the social, and he's Dr. AI from the US come back to Vietnam and develop solution for the using not in Vietnam. I think it's very good because now for the new tech, the Vietnamese government is like a thirsty, and I talking with about the relation networking, but for the new tech, the relation just is one piece of the successful, because the new tech is a new tech is quite different with the traditional like other sector, you know. Is my edit from the Leon for this.
I would like to add a little bit about how familiar between Vietnamese and Singaporeans. Like Mr. Tuan say that many Vietnamese entrepreneurs study abroad and came back and start up the businesses. But one country Mr. Tuan has not mentioned is Singapore. Singapore is also one of the most popular destinations for Vietnamese students to come and study. So most of us spend a lot of time in Singapore studying as well, and also came back to Vietnam and doing the startups business. Plus, Singapore is also one of the most tourist destinations in the world, and Vietnam is the next country. And many Vietnamese people go to Singapore for tourists, and many Singaporeans come to Vietnam for tourists. So we understand the culture very well. And also we own in Southeast Asian region, including Indonesia. So we feel very familiar with each other. And plus, like Leon shared, that Singapore is one of the biggest country with FDIs into Vietnam. And as a Vietnamese entrepreneur, we have the perception of friendly and professional from Singaporean companies. So it's a good image for any new investors want to enter to Vietnam.
Okay, thank you, Tony, for the sharing as well. Yeah, I think we are a bit short on time, so I will also not hold up everybody's schedule. Maybe I can invite the panelists to take one picture together now that we have gone. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll be sharing some upcoming activities from SG Tech's end. We do have another session tomorrow covering the legal landscape of Vietnam. and also 2 other webinars on Thailand coming up 2 weeks later. So if you're interested, do sign up. The link can also be found in the Zoom chat. And we do have a virtual Singapore Pavilion for Singapore tech companies interested to showcase at the Turkey Mobile Fest. So this is a hybrid event where there will be a networking and a webinar session, and also dedicated virtual business matching by the organizers, especially for the Singapore companies. So a good chance for you to get to know the Turkish companies as well as from around the world, because after all, this is a virtual event. The exhibition is open to all. And we do have a webinar upcoming this week as well on Wednesday on cybersecurity. So if you're interested in endpoint security solutions, you can also sign up for this. All these links can be found in the chat. And last of all, we have our webinar survey as usual. So if you have any comments or feedback for us, do fill it up and let us know. Or if you have any topics that you would like us to cover, you can also share with us. All right. And do follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. We do have a lot of activities from SG Tech's end. So always welcome to hear feedbacks from you on our events as well. Okay. Thank you very much to the panelists today for joining us, and special thanks to Mr. Indu, who is staying up late. He's based in Mexico, so it's really past midnight for him on a Halloween night for him. Yeah. So, and thank you once again for all our guests. We have 3 different time zones today. So thank you and stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.